2026 is shaping up to be a loaded year at the top. 2019 vibes. That's what Isaac says. Thank you for the $5 super chat, Isaac. I'm taking off my glasses for more of a dramatic effect because I think it's funny. Maybe it's not to you. But I also want to do that to kind of address the seriousness to your statement. I think relative to college football's new era, it will have 2019 vibes. Relative to the era. I think that it will be stronger than 2025 and stronger than 2024. But I also want to slap a caution sticker on that just and say that because of the portal and because of NIL and because of the new roster limits, it will probably be Walmart 2019. It will not, I don't think it'll be close to 2019 in terms of caliber of teams. Now, Ohio State should return a lot. Oregon, I think definitely because they're the youngest team out of the top 5 recruiting teams, they'll definitely return a lot. Texas should return a lot. Georgia should return a lot. Alabama should return a good chunk. The SEC schools won't return as much as the Big Ten schools. Just based on history, the fact Ohio State's proven before they can bring back a lot of their NFL players. Texas and Georgia could have done that entering this year, but they didn't. Most of the Ohio State players who went to the draft didn't even have any more eligibility, while the Texas and Georgia ones, and in some cases the Oregon ones, did. But mostly Texas and Georgia. For Oregon and Ohio State, a lot of their draft players who left genuinely didn't have any more eligibility in some situations. And others, for Oregon especially, they did. But all that being said, like 2019 Ohio State, for example, having Justin Fields, having the offensive line they did, the defense under Jeff Hafley, the fact that, they had 2 All-American corners, both viewed as elite, the fact they had Chase Young and then other great players backing him up, and the fact that, Brian Hartline was in year 2, but they still had a lot of good receivers from the Meyer era that he developed, and Chris Olave was good, and they had, I think, decent tight end play that year. And then they had J.K. Dobbins, who was a 2,000-yard rusher. You don't see that stuff anymore, and there's a reason that you don't, because since you no longer have that monopoly on your own players that you get out of high school most years, it is harder to develop players, and you have to be more tactical with your roster. You don't have the same amount of roster spots that you used to. You don't. You have more scholarships, but fewer roster spots. And it's harder to collect talent exclusively at the top, because instead of having Georgia, Ohio State, and then Alabama's the 1A recruiting program, so Alabama almost always got the number 1 class, you now have Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Oregon. Miami is getting to a point where I will tell you, if Miami wins a playoff game or wins the ACC, or if they just continue to linearly get better every year like they have under Cristobal, they're going to be that 6th team with the money they have. And then there are other teams like LSU, where if they get back, they could compete at the top. USC right now has the number 1 class, and based on how large it will be and how their average rank per recruit's high, they'll probably finish with the number 1 class, or at least very close to it. So you have more people competing for top-level recruits, and that kind of evens the playing field at the top. On top of that, with the portal and how you have more roster turnover every year and less returning production, what that means is there's less to build on for the average college football team every year. On top of that as well, coaching overall in college football, I think, has declined a little bit. There's been a coaching brain drain. Think of Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh leaving college after 2023. That was a big coaching brain drain right there. And then a half decade before that, you had Urban Meyer. And then a year after Urban Meyer, you had Chris Peterson. A lot of the awesome coaches, and there will be another generation of them, like Lanning and Day, are pretty young. And I would say Sark has a lot of youth to him. Kirby could have 20 more years of coaching within him. So there's a lot of guys who were just high-level coordinators coming out of their most recent job, and this is their first head coaching job in terms of consecutive jobs. Obviously, Sark was a head coach before his time as the OC at Alabama. But he went from being an OC, high-level OC to being a head coach, and he's succeeding. Same thing with Day. And then with Lanning and Smart, went from being a high-level DC to being a head coach, and they're succeeding. I think those and some others are the next future breed of great head coaches, but it will take time for that to happen. And including the portal and NIL and the wild, wild west with that, well, I think 2026 will be better than 24 and 25. I don't quite think it will be like 19. I think 19 was an insane year at the top, where you had 3 teams that could be considered GOAT talent level teams, and LSU was certainly a greatest of all time contender. I think 2019 Ohio State would beat every national champion since 2020 Alabama, for example. They wouldn't beat 2020 Alabama, but 2021 Georgia and on, they would beat all those teams, and some of them by double digits. When you look at this season, I think the same will apply. When I look at 2026, despite what everyone returns, I have to factor in that there will probably be some portal losses. There will be some smaller rosters. And I think that on top of that, along with recruiting being more leveled at the top, I think that, for example, 2019 Ohio State would probably plaster 2026 Ohio State. Even though I think 2026 Ohio State's going to be really good, and right now they'd be my natty favorite. They would be my pick to win it all in 2026. It'd be the same with Oregon. It'd be the same with Texas. Probably same with Georgia and Alabama. I think that 19 LSU would handily beat all those teams, just from a way too early projection standpoint. I think 19 Clemson would beat all those teams, and 19 Ohio State would beat all those teams. So, in a sense, yes, 2019 vibes, feelings, I get it. It will be a much stronger year than 24 and a stronger year than 25, I think for sure. But it'll probably be closer in strength to, let's say, 2023 or 2017, let's say, than 2019. 2019 was one of the strongest years in the 21st century, quite honestly. I mean, Michigan that year, who went 9-4 and at times looked bad, finished power rated ahead of playoff Oklahoma in FPI. So 19 was pretty powerful. I mean, you had Wisconsin and Penn State in the top 10. You had Oregon, who I think finished top 5 in FPI, but then had a loss to a young Jaden Daniels, who was obviously good. So I'm not dismissing your point. I think it's actually a great one. It's a fantastic, it's a fantastic analytical point. I'm very excited for 2026. I think 2026 will be a more exciting year than this year, because it'll be even more years removed from the Saban dynasty. And I think that with conference realignment, the tough schedules, NIL, and the portal even being enforced more, and then the playoff changes, and we will have seen 2 years of an expanded playoff from 4 teams, I think 2026 is going to be even more exciting than 2025. So I'm looking forward to that year. I'm already planning some things for that year. I'm actually going to make a video, should hit the notification bell to get that video, within the preseason that gives a way too early prediction for 2026 before the 2025 year even kicks off, because I think it's a fun idea. But 2019 was strong, and it was clear by middle of the year that it was going to be Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson, who were the only teams capable of winning it all. Not because there weren't other elite teams, but because those 4 teams were looking like GOAT caliber teams. I think that 2019 Oregon, and even to a certain degree, a team like 2019 Wisconsin or 19 Georgia could have competed for a playoff win, and 19 Georgia certainly could have been the natty favorite in another year besides 2019, but they were the 5th best team that year. Taking a pause to think, because I don't always like to blurt out my thoughts. Observing 2026 and what I think college football looks like now moving forward, I think the further you get into this, even if some years are stronger than 2024 and 2025, I think the average national champion from here on out will be weaker than 2024 Ohio State. On average. on average. And I don't think 2024 Ohio State was a strong national champion. Cite the 2 losses. The average national champion will be weaker than 2023 Michigan and any of the Georgia teams who came before them. Maybe I'm wrong there, but those teams did a really good job retaining their top players, and most of them came from high school. And the further you get from, again, the 2021 recruiting class was recruited in the mostly pre-NIL era. Now that you have high schoolers who've grown up in the NIL era, they're going to treat this a little bit differently.